with all this energy, I think we are ready to get started here.
Jolt.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all have enjoyed the sessions we've had so far this morning. My name is Trish Mahan. I'm a principal technologist at Max Potential, and I'm honored to be moderating this discussion on how to drive like an executive. Before we begin, I have just one quick note. I'll be running through a few sample questions to get this conversation going. That said, we'll be looking for questions from you, so please don't hesitate to send those through the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Now, without further ado, we have three fantastic panelists here today who are all very excited, have the caffeine going. So let's get started off with introductions. I'm going to start with you, Elaine Chang. Elaine is a Chief Information Officer for Chantel. Elaine, could you share with us a little about your career experience that led you to your current role?
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Trish. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here with you. This is quite an honor for sure. As Trish mentioned, I'm currently the Chief Information Officer at Chantel. I started my technology career about 25 years ago, and I started it with a maybe non-traditional start. So I was a liberal arts major in college. History was my background. And I accidentally fell into technology. I accepted a position as a project manager at a financial services firm. And I really did not realize how lucky I was to get that role. I wound up in technology long before there were websites or web transactions or APIs or mobile phones or, I'm old. And working at a bank, though, it already had an instilled sense of technology. It was an information business. And so the organization and technology was actually quite mature. And so I really learned a ton about technology there. I worked there for 16 years and also happened to be sort of in the right place at the right time. Because when I was had just started, we were just starting to look at how do we do these transactions online? How do we create a website? What does that mean? And so I just sort of started to look around and like, who's young enough to figure this out? Oh, okay, we'll pick on Elaine. And so I had that opportunity, and I worked there for about 16 years. During that time, I also went for my MBA and achieved that at University of Rochester Simon School, and eventually got to a point where I decided I wanted to become a chief information officer, and was given that opportunity at a firm in Charlottesville, CFA Institute, which is a global nonprofit organization. And I worked there for 8 years and finally decided that I wanted to get back into for-profit and try a new industry and learn something different. And I moved to Chantel, which is a broadband organization, broadband industry. And I've been there for about 18 months and love every minute of it and learning like crazy.
That's great. Thank you, Elaine. Second up, we have Charlene Mowry, who is a Director of Strategic Initiatives at Red Hat. Charlene, will you tell us about the journey that led you to where you are now?
Yeah, hi Trish and Elaine and Alicia. It's awesome to see you guys. We were chatting a little bit before we started, and I come from a Navy background, and I was reflecting on all of the times when you rely on caffeine and coffee to get you through that mid-watch. And I think those feel like you're fueled on caffeine, and it was Jolt Cola. That's what I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember, like, what was it that people had in college, and this will date myself because I don't even know if they have Jolt anymore, right? But it's that pure caffeine. And I think that spirit of just energy and wanting to contribute really, really led me to a career in the Navy. So I was so fortunate to be selected and able to go into the Navy. Love the service, and I miss the uniform every day. So I retired in 2012. An extraordinary opportunity for people to get leadership, and would certainly encourage people to consider service in some way if that calling is to you. I took no day for granted. I learned every day and had extraordinary mentors, and it was time for me to transition to industry. I relied on those awesome mentors to help keep me, on a good path for a career. And so I started in cybersecurity right out of the service, and now I'm in application development with Red Hat. And I will just say that. Those mentors along the way were really important to keeping me aware of things that are different in industry than in uniform. And they also helped navigate things like ethics and morals and just guidelines and really net that out for me. And I could not be more grateful for those, both in uniform and now in industry. And it's awesome to be on this terrific panel.
Thank you, Charlene. And last but not least, we have Alicia Hurt, Deputy Chief Information Security Officer at Gdit. Alicia, will you please drive us through your career experiences?
Sure. So good morning. First and foremost, thank you to RVA Tech for this invitation to join this panel discussion today. I'm excited to be here with Elaine and Charlene. And as Trish mentioned, my name is Alicia Hurt, currently the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for Gdit. I am responsible for leading and delivering customer-centric cyber solutions across federal, state, and local sectors as a part of our technology shared services practice. I've been with Gdit now for about 4 years, and prior to joining, I worked with many of you here in the Richmond area at companies like General Electric and Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond and Ernst & Young, just to name a few. So how did I get here? This is a question I ask myself often, and I do have to pause and reflect on my journey here. And so I graduated with a degree in systems engineering from UVA, and I picked that degree at the time because I was good at math and science. Throughout my time in Charlottesville, and Elaine, it sounds like you spent some time there as well, I quickly realized that math, science, and all the programming wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be. So I started actually gravitating more towards e-commerce school, focusing in on risk management, system design, methodologies, and really anything that helped companies and organizations solve complex issues. And so I realized that was the direction I wanted to take my career. And so after doing internships at companies like Capital One and the Federal Reserve, I actually joined the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, and I practically lived out of my suitcase for about 4 years as an IT bank examiner. And it was great. It was a great job right out of college. I'm traveling, I got my own car, and I know there's a lot of people from the Federal Reserve here. And so I learned a lot there. And then I went into IT consulting at Ernst & Young, followed by Circuit City. And then my defining moment came in my career. One of my previous colleagues called me from the Federal Reserve and said, "Hey, Alicia, we have a information assurance manager role within information security that I think you would be a perfect fit for." And my first thought to myself at 26 years old was, I don't know anything about information security, and I don't think I want to babysit grown adults that are older than me. Probably not the best thought at the time, but I did ask him about the role. I had a lot of questions around what support and development I would receive. I asked about, do you have any leadership training programs? And after hearing his responses, I felt a little bit better, but I wasn't completely sold, right? And so I thought about it. I asked some mentors, and I doubled down on what Charlene said, they're lifesavers, right? People that really knew me best, and all of them said the same thing. They said, "Alicia, you should absolutely take it." And so I did. And it was truly the best thing I could have done for myself, is to simply say yes when I wanted to say no because I was uncomfortable. And so the organization paid for my MBA. From there, I moved up and around, went to General Electric, met some phenomenal women like Courtney and Christina and others, and they paid for my master's degree in information assurance. They paid for my certifications. And then I moved on and was able to take on roles like this, Deputy Chief Information Security Officer at Gdit.
That's great, thank you. So as you can all probably see, we have a very diverse set of backgrounds and experiences moving forward. Now, to be honest, a lot of us here today do not have experience in a director, CIO, or deputy CISO seat. So this question goes out to everyone. What does a typical day look like in your current role?
Hey, maybe I'll take that one. I tell you, it's so much has changed. The daily pace, right, I think has accelerated tremendously, at least for me in technology. And you are in front of video cameras and trying to be connected to people in a different way. And it's required me to really reflect on what new pieces of leadership in terms of talent need to come into this to be able to be effective in this new environment, because it is back to back. It is a lot of distance, trying to be personal, and it's tough. And you see folks dealing with real things, their elderly parents perhaps, or their children, or they're all these roles, and they're trying to be engaged to work at work. And so it's been really quite different, and I think challenging in a lot of awesome ways for us to learn to really innovate and drive through. Over.
Yeah, and I would love to say there is a typical day for me in this world of cyber, but the reality right now is that each day is different and introduces new opportunities and challenges, as we just heard on the cybersecurity panel. But I can share there are some constants for me. For example, as Charlene mentioned, we're all remote, and so I do take 30 minutes to an hour each morning before I start my workday to do something for me. And this could be meditate, it could be take a walk or a bike ride outside, it can be watch a TV show, read, or cook breakfast. But this is truly my personal time to do whatever it is I need to do to center myself for the day. The only requirement is that it has to be something for myself, right? Once I've centered myself, I start my day with doing that one thing that I know I need to do, but I haven't done it for whatever reasons. It could be set up or have that difficult conversation with the customer. It could be strategize for the future or work on my hiring strategy or just prepare the to-do list for the day. And I call this eat the frog, right? For me, it means do that one value added thing that is pressing or looming before I jump into a marathon of customer and employee meetings that really center around, building solutions, building and maintaining that diverse workforce, and growing the business through customer alignment. And those are really my constants in a typical day for me. Now, in between those constants, there could be some curveballs, right, thrown my way where my counterparts need advisory support for things like CMMC, which is the Cyber Maturity Model Certification, or they may just want to pick my brain on some risk-based decisions that we need to make together as a team for the company. And I measure the success of my day by three things. One is, did I factor in some time today for myself? Two is, did I eat that frog? Did I do that one good value added thing today for the company or for my customers or for my team? And then number three, lastly, did I log off for the day without any cyber incidents that we were unable to recover from? And if the answer is yes to all three, I would say it was a good day for me, right? And I would consider that pretty typical.
I love the eat the frog. I need a saying like that.
I love that, right?
Or frog, whatever it is, or replace the frog with something else.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's not really a typical day, I think, in some ways, but there are some constants. I think that's right. I always think my day is around one, supporting my team. And then that means removing whatever roadblocks are in their way, being there for advice when they need it, and really, most importantly, thanking them and encouraging them. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a cheerleader kind of every day with the team. I think that especially where, and I know you guys all appreciate this and everyone in the audience does too. There's so much to do in technology, and it's just some days feel like a slog. And so I think our teams need that encouragement. Charlene mentioned, I think, relationships and relationship building. I mean, that is part of my day too, right? Is making sure I'm building relationships and communicating with our internal clients, our external clients, my team. I'm like the chief communication officer. someone once told me, like, information is in your name, is in your title, Elaine. Make sure you're focused on that. And so, yeah, information sharing is super important. And I would say, like, the last bit of the day is thinking about setting direction. So I'm always about, where's due north? Are we all traveling due north? Do we all know where due north is? Are we all pointing in the same direction? Do we understand what that goal is? And then a lot of times setting it, resetting it, making sure we're all traveling in the same direction. So somehow the day has to always be about that as well. And I like what Alicia said as well, that, that a day is also about making sure that you set your boundaries, because it can take you over in a heartbeat. And, I'm sure all three of us know that, you got to say, this is when I'm going to start and this is when I'm going to stop. And you have to set those guardrails for yourself, and you have to take time for yourself, whatever that looks like. And sometimes that means you're saying, like, not now, can't do this now. We'll do it later.
And that requires courage, right? To be able to say not now. I mean, and for transparency, I did not have a great boundary. Like, I didn't take time to eat my frog at the beginning, just like all in, what is this? And definitely didn't appreciate boundaries, right? And it's on us to make those boundaries. And then in a leadership position, also to show the team how to create boundaries and in a safe place to say, hey, not now. That's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the one thing I remind myself is, if I'm not doing it, then I'm not showing my team that it's okay.
Right.
And I think that's a really important reminder.
Yeah, this is all great. So now I've heard a lot of times executives are planning out not just 1, but 5, even 10 years ahead with their strategy. You've also mentioned a lot of the change and potential impact from COVID-19. Alicia, could you kick us off with, like, how far ahead do you typically plan your career, work, or personal goals, and how has COVID impacted that?
No, it's a great question, Trish. And I am a planner, or at least I thought I was prior to COVID. I definitely plan my personal related goals. Those are so important to me. Probably I do that more so than I do my career goals, which is rather interesting. Prior to COVID, I was that person that plans all of the family vacations. I rally up my girlfriends from college to plan that getaway trip where we leave work, our spouses, our kids, and everything behind to, like, really catch up on life. And typically I would plan those out a year in advance. Well, not so much now, right? COVID has us doing virtual workouts together, as well as virtual girlfriend checkout Zoom sessions, which is so different. So while there is some still planning there for those things have definitely been a lot more spontaneous and random this year, for sure, to say the least. From a work perspective, I do plan, strategize, and roadmap things out probably 3 years, right? With the understanding that things are subject to change. And guess what? They will change. But it's rather important to go through that thought leadership process, not just for yourself, but also for your team, so that you ensure that alignment is there. And Elaine mentioned a little bit about that. Like, what's that compass? From a career perspective, I actually try not to plan that out too much, because what I've learned that, my journey is my journey, but there's several different paths to get there, right? So never once did I say along the way that I was going to be, or wanted to be, deputy CISO for a $10 billion organization. Never, right? And so I've really been open and flexible, I would say, over the past couple of decades to various different opportunities. Which has truly helped me get exposed to diverse perspectives, as well as experiences that I really can apply anywhere. So different answers there, Trish, for different aspects of my life.
Yeah, that's great. Charlene or Elaine, do you have anything to add?
I'm learning. I just wrote down the virtual workouts.
Yes,
Alicia, I just love that.
Yes, I'm doing a lot of eating, so I have to balance it with some type of movement.
I would just, the only thing I would say is I I agree with Alicia. It's really hard sometimes to know where you're going to end up, and you have to be super open to all the possibilities that come your way and the opportunities. But I will add that I do try to look out for my career about 5 to 10 years out. And that actually was something that I learned because early in my career, I did not plan. And I think that unfortunately closed some doors I would have rather left open by not thinking about it a little bit longer term. And just, one example of that is one thing no one tells you is that you sometimes can get pigeonholed in industry. And if you don't like that industry, that's a problem. And I've actually jumped industries a couple of times, so it's not impossible to move around, but it makes it harder. People that, if you're in financial services, those are the job offers you're going to get. You're not often going to get the, hey, go work at, the Gap or whatever, so you do have to kind of think about if you're happy within that industry and that role. And if you're not, you have to think about, how do I manage a transition or sell myself differently so that I can move around? And that's the only thing I would say give some thought to, because I did not, and it was harder to move than I would have liked it to have been.
That's great advice. All right, so with all that planning, you've got your plan now, how you want to lead your organization forward. What are some strategies you employ to drive your peers and team to get work done towards those targets? And how do you navigate conflict or pushback? And Charlene, I'd like to start with you.
Well, thanks, Trish, for the question. It's a great question for me, because I'll tell you, I am super transparent. And I think the first thing there is have empathy for others. So this kind of goes without saying, and every leader, you go through these times of challenge and times of real success. I think for me, the big thing for just keeping people driven is to have empathy, to be transparent, to say, hi, ladies, didn't have much sleep last night. There's 2 extra espressos in my coffee. And for that to be okay. Or to say, hey, the baby kept you up all night. I can tell you're tired. Maybe try to knock off a little early. This will wait. And to show that we're all human here. And I would challenge anyone that says that COVID has not affected them in some way. It's affected us all. And our most important thing that we can do to help our businesses and to really drive and distinguish ourselves as a leader is to take care of our people. So I've heavily rotated on empathy. If I'm not feeling up to it, I'll just offer that. Hey, bear with me today. Or if I see with my team, I'll ask them, hey, how is it really going? And if they say fine, I'll say no, let's have a real conversation to the extent that they're comfortable, right? About, hey, how is it really going? And are you okay? And that's beyond like, are you safe and wearing, with COVID, but are you centered and okay and able to focus? Emails and text messaging is really blown up, because we're not in front of each other. And I find sometimes those tones in the email, and I've even experienced this myself, it comes off maybe in a way that I didn't mean, because they're just words and because we're running at a faster pace. And so it has taught me to kind of slow down a little bit and think a lot more about the words chosen, and then follow up with a phone call. There's nothing, or a video. Just to put context around everything to make sure that people know that you really care. And Red Hat's an open organization, so we really do focus a lot on giving everybody a voice. The second piece about keeping people engaged is really to overemphasize the why. Okay, so that is always important, but it's really important when people are worried about their parents or their kids can't finish their math, or maybe they're on a Google something downstairs or wherever in the house and they're running in the background. And now you want me to do this report or something. Explain the why. why is this important to the business? Why is this important to your career development? And I think that helps people just emotionally connect with, hey, yeah, I got to make time for this. I got to work it in. The last thing is optimism. So I really work on this, right? So if it's not an awesome morning, I try to make it. As soon as I walk in and I sit down, it's like, this is the desk of awesomeness, and we're going to try to be optimistic about everything today. And it doesn't matter what today will bring. I really try hard to think positively first, and that is infectious. And it's particularly important now when you see people really struggling, and and like you can't be there to help, and it's not even your role to help, but be an optimist about approaching problem sets. And that, I think, has really helped people embrace and kind of lean in to the extent that we can. And that's really taking flexible workplace and all to another level. Real quick on conflict. Actually, I like a healthy amount of conflict. If everybody is happy and everything's going well, something's really not well, right? I mean, that's not normal. It's normal for people to have conflict. So I try to embrace conflict. Conflict means people care and they're passionate, right? Which means they're engaged. So if people disagree, and that's normal. I try to just say, hey, let's all talk it out in a safe place where we can be honest and have trust. And being under a principle of an open organization is actually really, really helpful, because those are just tenets that really magnify those. And we talk about different viewpoints and why. And then we also say, agree to disagree. And at some point, we might not all be on top of where we're going to go. And sometimes the team needs help to kind of get there. But if they've been heard and they feel like they have a culture where it's okay to speak up and have conflict, like that's not a negative thing, I think it really helps. It's about giving a voice. So that's kind of my take with conflict, which is very much a growth area for me, and how problems are solved, especially in places like high tech and software development.
Absolutely. I love it. Empathy is key, and let's keep having more conflict. It helps people grow. That's great. I'd like to transition us to a different topic here for a little bit. I want to talk about the executive level meetings. So I know a lot of people that have not been in one of these meetings may feel anxious or nervous prior to joining that first meeting. Elaine, could you share a little on what it is like preparing for that level of meeting, and how has that experience differed from any of your previous roles?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, it is very common, and you should expect yourself to feel nervous. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to give you some things that I do, and maybe that'll help you, but don't feel bad that you're nervous. I mean, I think that's natural. I've been in a million, board meetings, executive meetings, and I still get nervous, I think it's natural. Then you just got to turn that nervousness into the energy that you need, in that discussion. But I think what's going to really help you is to prepare. And, I am saying this as someone who, for the most part, I fly by the seat of my pants in most meetings. I feel pretty comfortable walking into most meetings, not being prepared and kind of running with where we're going and, having the ability to do that. But for executive meetings, no. I mean, I am preparing like it is my thesis, my senior thesis. I think the things to think about are kind of the following as you're preparing. First and foremost is that executives do not want you to talk to them for like a half an hour at all. Like they want to hear you say about 3 things, and then they want to talk. They want to ask questions. They will take the direction of where they want that meeting to go. So it's very hard to hold yourself back because our jobs are complex. There are a lot of elements to them. There are many things you could explain, and you want to show up as the expert. So part of you absolutely wants to get into the detail, but you have to rein that in. That's not what they want. The second is you have to think about outcomes and explaining outcomes, not the what. So you may want to come in and talk about, let's say, a new feature or capability that you're launching in technology, right? We're about to launch this website. Yeah, okay, that's not what they want to hear. They want to know how that website is going to contribute to whatever their goals are, right? So whether that's increased revenue or more efficiency in the contact center or whatever it is, that's what you need to come in and talk about. And I would also say that you don't need it all on a slide. So if you're creating slides for this presentation, less is more. So it'd be better and more impactful if you had one slide that had a big exclamation mark on it. And that's it. Rather than, you know, a bunch of bullets. This is all the stuff we did. And just use that exclamation mark and you're going to be able to talk, you know, and be able to say, we just, you know, created this feature that's going to drive, you know, X number of more, you know, customer service efficiencies or something. And they'll remember it, right? Because in their heads, they're going to remember something that was unusual of just seeing, you know, a big exclamation mark on a slide. And I think that will stick in their heads more. And then I think you really want to practice what you're going to say. And again, that kind of gets back to, because you're going to have to not say all the things you want to say. So make sure you're sort of well rehearsed. Although obviously when you go in, you don't want to sound super well rehearsed, but you want to be pretty prepared. So those are the things that I would say I've tweaked over time. I did not start there, but over time I've gotten to that point through my own experiences and times where I didn't do it, and also advice from my peers who've gone through it as well. So those are things I would definitely think about.
Love that, Elaine. So I totally agree, right? Prepare, practice, know your audience. I find myself more focused on my message and what's the key takeaways, right, for this audience. Yeah. I also make sure I have my bluff statement, and this is bottom line up front, ready. In the event you don't get as much time as you think you have, right? You have the meeting for 30 minutes, but it either starts late or people ask questions. So make sure you're going in with a skinny down version of your message, just in case you don't get through all of it. And then something else I find helpful for me is I spend a lot of time going back to preparation in my role, ensuring I have buy-in from key business stakeholders prior to the meeting, right? So huge, right? Because you can share that in your story, right? In your message and say, hey, I did my due diligence. I already talked to the impacted stakeholders, right? They're on board. That goes a long way in those meetings, because that's the first question they ask. Did you partner or talk to XYZ, right? Because they're going to be impacted by this. And then lastly, I would just say, you know, try to tell a story, right? That has that beginning, that middle, and end if you have that time. And then conclude with actual tangible takeaways or things that you may need from that group, and ensure you have agreement and invested commitment on the topic at hand to be able to move forward in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. But well said, Elaine. Love it.
I do too.
I just picked up some notes from you, Alicia, so.
I always felt you have to, especially early on, I felt I felt maybe different a little bit, you know, in technology and military, you know, you're aware. And I always felt like I needed to maybe overachieve, like I needed to over prepare and over study and over rehearse. And I remember reflecting on that, thinking, man, maybe this is all wasted time. But it really wasn't. I mean, it helped it come off polished and prepared to be able to innovate on the spot when you're super nervous about things. But it also kind of grew some skills now later in my career where I still rehearse sometimes, you know, that I won't probably ever give that up, because people who are different than me that are hearing my message give great advice and pointers. And it can really help you pivot if you're getting difficult questions and you want to just be that subject matter expert and deliver with confidence, you know, but well-grounded that you know your stuff, you know.
That's great. So now I'm going to look to our audience. We have a few great questions in here. Starting with one from Rebecca Reynolds. When you see one of your team not delivering on a critical need, how do you resist not taking it over yourself, or do you? So, do you jump in and get hands on yourself, or how do you sort of hedge back?
Yeah, I'll happy to jump in. I mean, it is, I mean, that's definitely hard because you are ultimately accountable for whatever they're delivering and you do not want to fail. So I definitely get that. It's a good question. Typically, I will reach out to that individual and we'll work through, well, what is happening? Why, I will be very honest about what I'm observing and that there is a delivery miss. And, I think it's important for people to be aware of that. Sometimes they're not even aware that they are in that spot. And then we need to talk about, well, what is it that is preventing you from being successful here? And let me see if I can help remove roadblocks, but I still need you to be accountable. And then typically we're coaching through that, why are we missing? Where are you missing? And hopefully they're going to be able to get back on track. And if not, sometimes that's not the right role for them, right? And we got to figure that out. But usually people aren't aware or something's getting in the way and we need to remove that roadblock.
I think especially now. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alicia.
Oh no, I was just going to add to that. I think it's a great question, Rebecca, because as leaders and type A personality, it's so easy to just jump in and just do it, right? And I struggle with that. I'll be honest, true transparency, because we're in a safe zone here. Early in my career, I struggle with that, right? But as I grew in this leader role, empowerment and influencing others to deliver results is the name of the game, right? And so I often share with my cyber vertical leaders that you are the CEO of the service you provide to our customers. And I'm simply your advisor, right, if you will, that is here to help get you the resources you need to be successful to run your business. And I'm here to help, develop and grow and invest in you. But at the end of the day, right, this is your business, this is your service. And so by sharing that accountability with them, letting them know that you're in it with them, but they own it, I often find that's helpful as well, right? And they feel that sense of ownership and they want to do the right thing and they dive right in. And before you know it, they're doing it, right? In addition to some of the things Elaine said as well, it's that conversation, that dialogue. But if you start telling your folks they are the CEO of the services they run, they're going to start running them like they're the CEO, right? So get ready for that. And so that's the only thing I wanted to add there, Charlene, before you jump in there.
Great. Charlene, did you have anything to add?
No, I think just that, I was just agreeing with Alicia's comments about people owning, people step up. And the other thing is like, if the person is good and they're hired and they're in the right place, there's often like, there's something there, right? I mean, there's something they may not share, but you don't know what's going on in that person's life. So it could be the person can't focus. They're able to do the job, but they can't focus because there's like something going on. This is just really about having empathy and connecting with your people. Some are not going to be okay with that, very personal, and that's totally cool too, of course. But I remember I had a performer once that was a team lead, excellent person, and then something just was going on, just dropping off, and I didn't know it, but his daughter was sick and he didn't share, and of course that's so mentally draining, right? And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Well, let's pair you, let's help through this. Won't say why, but I get it. And it was just really great to just know that, instead of like judging, well, he's not trying hard. Truth is he was trying the hardest as he could. There were just other things in life. It's about being human, and you take care of your people, and then when they're able, they'll take care of you too.
That's great. All right, next question from Nathan Lukeson. As women in a leadership position of an industry heavily dominated by men, when do you think was that aha moment that you could truly lead and lead well?
Oh, maybe if I could just offer real quick, like my mom was she was so encouraging early on. You can do anything. That optimism, right? You can do anything. And so from a little girl, like I didn't really think that I couldn't do anything, be an astronaut. Well, that was never going to work, right? But I think having that encouragement. So I don't know that I had an aha moment for me. I think it was having the benefit of really strong role models, male and female role models. And I looked and journaled a whole lot and just had a lot of self-confidence. Now, having said that, I've doubted a lot. We all do, right? I mean, is this the right place for me? Is this the right role? Am I ready? And I think definitely have rotated on, am I ready? And what skills do I need? But it wasn't so much about, being a female per se, but it was about, is my tool set ready? And I think that self-inflection is helpful at every level, whether you're fresh out of college and you're deciding and considering to, maybe a board member towards the latter part of the career. Over.
Yeah, I don't know if I had an aha moment either, but I've definitely said to myself many times, there's no reason for you to feel like you're any less competent at this role than your male counterparts. So just go in there and do it like that. And I think, sometimes you do have to tell yourself that, because there are moments where you doubt yourself, and it's kind of, I don't even know why we do this to ourselves, but we do. I do. I won't speak for everybody, but I feel like in the conversations I've had with other women and colleagues that we do have those moments, and I've just learned to tell myself, just go in there and do it like John does it, like Jack does it, and it's kind of that you almost have to fake it to yourself, even though you are every bit as competent and you can do it. So.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you ladies. Like, I don't know that I had a true aha moment where it's like, oh, I'm the only female in the room. This is a male dominated field. But I do think I had an aha moment when that previous colleague tapped me for a leader role, right? So apparently he saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself at the time. And so what I would share is that, regardless of it being an information security field or tech field, if you possess those skill sets to be a leader, some of the things that Charlene talked about, leading with empathy, right? Taking care of your people, like all of those are transferable skills as a leader. And so I think in that moment, when I stepped into that role and we had positive outcome, I think in that moment, I said, I can lead any team. I can lead any field, any industry, right? It was that boost of confidence. And I just want to share that allyship is so important, right? People will identify stuff in you that you don't know you possess. So listen to them, reflect, like Charlene said and Elaine said, it's important to digest that, right? And don't be afraid to step into it. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, try again, try something else, right? So definitely agree. Definitely life-changing for me from a career perspective in that moment for me.
I'm just gonna add one more thing. I hope I'm not being presumptuous here, but Alicia just reminded me of something that she said just triggered with me. I think too, like for so long, I felt like I had to be perfect, and my execution had to be, flawless, and that, and I think that actually prevented me from learning in a way that would make me a better person, better executive, better human, honestly. And I've given up that a lot, not totally, but I've given that up a lot more than I have in the past, and allowed myself to say, if I don't recognize the times where I have failed, if I refuse to allow myself to see that failure, I am going to lose the opportunity to learn and get better. And that has been a hard road for me. And But if I had learned it earlier, it probably would have been easier. And I honestly would have been way farther ahead in my career than I am now.
So I wanted to pick up on that, the failure part. I mean, that's about just knowing who you are and your risk tolerance. And that's whether you're going to take that job or whether this paper is good enough or whether you want to lead in a certain area. I was afraid of failing, right? Like I didn't want to fail. Who wants to fail, you know? And I think if you're not careful, that'll stop you from really trying and maybe unlocking kind of what you're talking about, Elaine. And I think that now being comfortable, I've made so many mistakes, like, oh, well, this could have been done better and that could have done better. And so when I first started that, I felt like I was focusing on what I did wrong so that I won't do it again. And you know what I found is it was kind of dragging me down. It's like I don't know, maybe thinking too much into it. It's like, that was so yesterday. Everyone makes mistakes. You learn from it, and then you look forward. And I actually had a great opportunity to talk with one of just the most extraordinary women, who's my personal mentor, just awesome. We were talking about that, and I asked her like about her past failure, and she's like, I don't think about the past. You learn right there in the moment and you move on. And I actually journaled a lot about that. I mean, that is so true and so wise. And I need to do even better at that. But I think now risk taking is something that, I do get, you're comfortable with. But earlier on in the career, it's tough. You don't want to make a mistake. And that's too bad,
That's great, Charlene. And I think that leads us to one of the next great questions in here. What is one thing you've learned through mentoring others in your career, and what are the qualities of a great mentor?
So I'll maybe just start on this one, because maybe we'll park on this for a minute. I love one of the things that has been super positive for me in COVID has been an opportunity to mentor more. So I have connected with so many people that I've lost touch with. And from a mentorship perspective, can you give me perspective on this? I also have a mentor that's much younger than me, because I feel like I need someone who's right out of college to give me perspective. So, and that's weird to think of it like that, but I read some articles about it, and it's so true. So I definitely focus on spending time with people that I don't work with and that are not in my network, and that just reach out and want to have a conversation. Because it was those kind of conversations when I was leaving the military. I just called random people who were retired from the Navy, and they spent time with me and gave me valuable guidance. And so if there's anything I can do now, is to try to give a little bit of time back and offer one perspective. But it is just that one perspective. I'd always say you got to get other perspectives too, because my opinion is just one opinion, and it may or may not be relevant to the context that you're asking. So it's just really, really a great question.
Yeah, I would just add on to that I have mentors that probably don't even realize they're my mentors, right? These could be family members, they could be friends, they're inside work, outside work. I too find myself doing more mentorship now during COVID. People need it, right? People are making career changes. They want advice, how do I get into cyber? I don't have a technical degree. So I'm finding that more and more people are reaching out, and there's a need more so now than before. And then the people that reach out for mentorship end up being my mentor, right? Like, you just learn from each other, regardless of your role, regardless of your industry and where you are in your career path. I think every opportunity you engage and connect with each other is a mentorship opportunity. And I think it's also good to acknowledge you will have great mentors. You will have not so great mentors. Guess what? That is a learning opportunity too, right? You're learning something new, a quality that you may say, hey, that didn't resonate with me, right? Or that quality is not really something I want to see in my mentor or possess. And that's okay too, right? And so that's still a learning opportunity for you to take forward that will be helpful.
Yeah, I think you bring out such a good point. You both of you do. I think I've always reacted a little strangely to the word mentor in the sense that I think it's an overly used title for something that is a little bit more simple, which is there are many people, I think we, both Charlene and Alicia mentioned this, there are many people who are going to offer you advice, who are going to offer you insight. And I think that's really what mentoring is about. It's about insight, about information, and maybe helping you look at a problem or a situation in a different way. And there are a lot of people that can offer that for you, and you're going to be able to offer that to a lot of people. And what I find is challenging is the sort of formalization of that, because I think when you force that mentorship, it's not quite, it's hard to put in a box, I think. So I think just be open to the fact that a lot of people are going to be your mentors, and you're going to mentor a lot of people, because it's really just about finding advice and insight where you might not have it yourself.
I just want to add there, you made me think about something, Elaine, right? This word mentorship. Someone told me one time, don't make a big deal about it, right? I think if you go to someone and say, hey, Elaine, hey, Charlene, can you guys be my mentors? There's this big burden or this feeling of, oh my gosh, do I have time? What does that mean? And so like, try to casually, like it should be genuine, right? You reach out, you talk, you chat. It's a couple of folks on my team, they said, hey, Alicia, you have 5 or 10 minutes to chat. Sure, I have 5 or 10 minutes chat. Then the dialogue starts. And then next thing I know, they're like, hey, can I set up, 5 or 10 more minutes, in 4 to 6 weeks. And next thing you know, you have this mentorship, but they didn't come to me and say, Alicia, can you mentor me? Like you said, Elaine, this formal thing, this time sucking initiative, right? And so I would just say, don't make a big deal about it, right? Let it be genuine. Before you know it, you're going to have mentors that you can't even count on your hand, and they just happen, right? That you connect, you ask for advice. Hey, I saw you did this presentation. I really like your style. Could you help me with ABC, right? Something quick, and then it just develops into the relationship. So I just really want to pull that thread a little bit, Elaine, because it does feel awkward, right? When you say, can you mentor me, right? And people look at you, right? Like a deer in headlights, right? So think about it that way. It's just a conversation. It's just, hey, could you share some advice or takeaways or something quick, right? And then you just develop that relationship over time.
So, been great advice. I think we have a couple minutes left, so I want to finish out with one sort of summary question. Could each of you provide one piece of advice, one recommended resource, something to anyone starting this journey today, anyone in the middle of their journey today, something to share to help build some of our attendees?
Yeah, I'll start off with this one, something that, is my story journey that resonates with me. And I would just say, as you think about your career change or starting to embark on this journey, right, get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? That's number one, right? Acknowledge it, but then keep going, right? And make sure you are bringing others along with you on that journey. I think also the other thing I would say is just continue to be curious about learning. That will take you far, right? And I think if you connect and network with one another, you'll learn, you'll pick up things, and you will navigate to your final destination one way or another. And so I would just say, be open to the art of the possibility for yourself, and don't be afraid to take that leap, right? And as Christina mentioned in her keynote, right? Try until, right? And you fill in that blank for until.
I think for me, maybe it's being sure of who you are, right? Like, know yourself. It's easy, I think, to get caught up in what people think you should be, or what society wants you to be, or maybe what your business maybe needs you to be. But ultimately, you got to know yourself. I saw some questions in here about choices of jobs and money. And there's one person in here that's back in college at 55. Bravo, shout out to you on that. That is awesome. I think it's knowing yourself, and it's a journey to happiness, right? And that for some people, that's that's money. Some people that's position and title. For some people that's just enough to make ends meet and spend time with family. And there's no wrong answer there, but it's about who you are, where you are on, on the time that you want to dedicate to your job, where you want to go on your goals, and focus. For me, it was always about where will I be happiest? Because at the end of the day, I mean, I want to be happy. I want my teams to be happy. I want people to be productive. And I definitely believe that happy teams are productive teams. So if they're not in the right role, then you want to get them there so that they can be happy. But it starts with yourself. So I journal a lot. I always have. It helps me. So when I wonder why did I think of something one way instead of another, it's probably something I've journaled on and learned about myself. So it's been a lot of self-reflection, and I think that was really important, just to make sure that you're always really well grounded, because sometimes it's easy to get caught up in things, and you may not know you're caught up in it until you're swirling around in it, and then you got to know, hey, who am I? What's my role, and what is the right thing for me? And let that guide you. And that, I think that threads a couple of the questions in here, and through it all. Reading is great. Read for things that are different than things that you know, and talk to people with as much diversity as possible.
Great, thank you.
Those are great. I'm like writing my own, like, those are good advice. I think the only thing I would say is when I reflect on my career and where I've had opportunities and where I've gotten them from, I think one thing to think about is you should give more than you get. And when you come from a place of, I'm looking for an opportunity to give, I promise you, you will get. And I have had more opportunities because I was willing to raise my hand and say, hey, I'll try that. I'll do that. And this isn't a job opportunity. It's a problem that was happening, in an organization or in a department, or even outside in not, in a nonprofit, where I've said, hey, I'm willing to help. I don't have an expectation of where that's going to take me, but I just want to help. And inevitably that has led me to meet someone I wouldn't have met, show off my skills in a way no one would have seen before. And that has always led to the opportunities that I've had. So I think that just learning to give and to be that volunteer will inevitably pay off for you. And you'll feel great about it. You'll feel good about giving, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd also offer real quick, if there are folks on this call and on these things that want to chat, feel free to reach out, and happy to have a chat. It's just one view, right? But if there's something that you'd like to ask separately, I love the women's event here with the Richmond Technology Council, and I think it's really fun to connect. So always open.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alicia, Charlene, and Elaine. I've shared your LinkedIn in the chat, and I'm going to hand this back over to Courtney.
Thank you so much, ladies. It was great to hear from each of you. I think that was very inspirational and gave me a couple things that I need to take away. I love the eat the frog, Alicia. That is perfect. So I do want to go ahead and transition over. We're going to move into our MLM Awards. And before we do that, I do want to take just one moment, and they actually don't know that I am doing this. So let me just share real quick. All right. I just wanted to take a moment, and Nick, Lindsay, and Mary did not know this was happening, but I just wanted to take a moment in front of all of you to say thank you. As you've seen, Nick Surface, Lindsay Money, and Mary Case have been helping us today, doing a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that this event is successful. So just wanted to extend a huge thank you. We could not do this without you, and appreciate your support in pulling this together. So I'll stop sharing and now let you all get back to sharing. as I mentioned, we do want to move into our MLM Awards, and we will go to a short break for lunch after that, and then come back for our afternoon breakout sessions. Before we move into the MLM Awards, I want to extend a huge thank you again to Capital One. Capital One is one of our title sponsors for RVA Tech, and just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your support. You've heard from a lot of women from Capital One today. They've been a great partner of RVA Tech through the years. So thank you. In addition, thank you to Altria, another title sponsor. Huge thank you to Altria for all of your support as well throughout the years. They have been a consistent sponsor of RVA Tech events and wanted to just take a moment to say thank you to them.